So, why are we here? I like that question. Today, I'm hoping to introduce the three principal aspects of the path. It's the most concise teaching of the whole Lam Rim. When we think of the Lam Rim text of the stages of the path to enlightenment, essentially 14 verses. That can give you the whole path, which is nice. We like things concise, right? But each verse really unpacks a really rich teaching. The three principal aspects of the path are the 3 points of renunciation, bodhicitta, and wisdom. So essentially, at the essence of what makes us a Buddhist, and that's, I think, what I've been toying with lately, is what makes someone a Buddhist. I'd love to make all of you Buddhists. That'd be great. As if, the Buddha taught us how to not suffer. And when we are suffering a mental or emotional affliction, I'm angry, I'm upset, I'm worried, I'm concerned, I'm fearful, I'm anxious, I'm delusional. And when you're a Buddhist, you know that. And I find it very fascinating that we can know and not know something simultaneously. We talk all the time about how all of my mental, emotional problems, afflictions, worries, concerns, where are they located? In my mind. It's not out there anywhere. It's my mind. That's where it is. And we talk about it a lot. It's an interesting topic. And yet we can still go out and get worried, angry, upset, frustrated, and know that it's not out there. It's my mind. And worse yet, it's my mind based upon a delusional concept of what's happening. It's delusional. So when I'm angry, upset, worried, fearful, or I'm insane. I'm literally insane. Literally. And yet that's my normal mode of being. Now we can talk about it. I can know that, and then I can be insane. And at the same time, just engage in these activities as though they're real. As though they have some basis in actual truth. It's fascinating. I just find it really fascinating that we can talk and delve in and unpack and then go out and get really pissed off real quick or get real nervous real fast or sad or this or whatever's going on, as if what is happening outside of me is the cause of what is. So how do we change that? And that's where some of the wisdom, wisdom is what liberates us. Wisdom is the thing that says, if I actually can see clearly, these things will not arise because they arise out of delusion, out of misperception, out of misunderstanding. My mental afflictions, which are imprints in my mind, they arise based on my misunderstanding of what's happening. So if I understand what's happening, they're not going to arise. So wisdom's the key. Talking about it won't help that much, will it? We can talk about it a lot, and we can unpack it. We might get a glimpse of some understanding of it, and then we can walk out and just do the same thing over again. So there's a wisdom that we need to get to. And then we have this piece of, well, how do I start to get there? Because one of the fundamental problems is that I constantly mistake pleasurable experiences as something wonderful, as something nice. And I don't see that they are actually the seeds of my suffering. I don't see that sitting in a jacuzzi is not the source of my happiness. Because it feels like it is. Until you're there for a half an hour. Or an hour. And then it's not so happy. My desire, my attachment to have these things creates actually my dissatisfaction when I don't have them, or I have them too long, or something else is shinier and new. And as soon as I get that comfort level, this is it, I've had it made. My mind can pretty quickly go to, well, how do I keep it? How do I fear losing it? How do I sustain it? And then I'm already not at peace, already not at ease. And so I get caught up in this really interesting, vicious cycle of constantly trying to find in my outer circumstances, real happiness of any lasting sort. And fundamentally, and maybe we'll unpack this text a bit, fundamentally at the core, and we've talked about this for the last 2 weeks, if we are going to change, if we are going to remove suffering, we need to recognize suffering, right? If I don't recognize it, it's okay. Why do anything? When life is really good and everything's peachy, I'm not going to the Dharma talk, man. I'm going out to dinner. When life's all good and wonderful, I'm not looking at what is the root of my attachment and aversion and mental afflictions, It's all good. But when I recognize that there is struggle, there is dissatisfaction, there is my friends that come and go, there is hardship, there is anxiety, there is fear, that in my life there's a constant flux going on that is never enough. And even when it's good, it's not enough. And if I start to recognize something, no matter how good my life has been, how wonderful the things I've had have been in the past, this moment of depression, anger, resentment, or fear, all of that stuff I've done in the past means absolutely nothing. I was reading a commentary by His Holiness on this, and he was pointing out, interesting figures, people like Hitler. Hitler had an incredible amount of power, right? I mean, had he not done that whole split the two fronts thing, we might be speaking German now, and had an enormous amount of power, had everything that you can imagine. How did he die? He literally took poison. He had to end it all, and he had lost everything. All this stuff, and at the end, I'm poisoning myself. I mean, you go through a list of people and recognize people that we know that ended their lives in pain and suffering, and they had done all these incredible things. And so we may start to understand that all of these things I've done, especially, I've shared this with you before. I grew up in Southern California around a lot of the movie industry. So there's these people that were once stars, And it's a real sad thing later in life for a lot of people, because the rest of their life they're telling you that they were once a star. I used to be a kid TV star, and then how did I end up? Or sometimes you'll see, what's happened to our stars later. There are some who move on and engage in life in a meaningful way, and it doesn't matter that much. But there's a huge majority that says, I was this once, and I'm no longer that now. But I want to let you know I used to do that, Or if I get the award or the degree and I hang it on the wall, and then apparently I need to get you into my wall so you can look at it, so you can know what I once did and did accomplish at one time. And if we start to kind of notice these things, that the best things in our life that felt really good, that winning moment or that test where you got an A or that relationship and that perfect moment, they come and they go. And I'm still subject to being angry, depressed, frustrated, and scared right now. Did all those things mean anything ultimately? And at the time of my death, how much are they going to matter? How much are they going to matter? So if we are to become Buddhists, if we are to start to recognize that my happiness and well-being is not out there, that recipe doesn't work. It just doesn't work. It never has. It never will. It's impossible. It is impossible. And we can recognize that that's true. That every happiness and joy that you have based on an outer stimulus will come and go. Won't last. And in them are actually the seeds of our dissatisfaction. Because, well, my vacation this year wasn't as good as last year. Or, how things change, right? So we have those three types of suffering. So recognizing this, how do we remember the truth? We need to cultivate what's this renunciation. And renunciation, remember, is a determination, a fierce determination to say, I refuse to suffer. Renunciation is not, I'm only going to have a bowl of rice and, live in a cave. Renunciation is a determination to say, I'm not going to buy into the plan that doesn't work. I'm no longer going to really ripen the seeds that cause suffering in my life. I am going to start not suffering. I am determined to see things clearly, accurately. I'm determined to stop letting my mind run my life. And I am renouncing that formula of pain and suffering. That's what we're renouncing the delusion that this world that we are living in is going to provide it for us. What this will provide in our conditioned existence is very simple. There's 4 things, birth, aging, sickness, and death. And everything will come and go. And that we can pretty much count on. We can count on that. It's reliable. It can never provide a lasting inner peace and well-being. We can do that. We can do that. And I want to, I was listening to a little talk Mathieu Ricard, incredible, the Venerable Mathieu Ricard, incredible monastic who was a scientist earlier, and then a monastic. Yeah, I guess he's still both. And he was talking about his sort of definition. We use this a lot in our other courses around genuine happiness. So if we really reflect on happiness in a more accurate way, we need to not confuse it with pleasurable experiences. And this becomes sort of that problem. Genuine happiness, or a state of happiness, is really a state of well-being. It's a state that says, I'm okay. Okay, things are happening that aren't fun. Things are happening that are fun. I'm going to be okay. With a state of happiness, it's a constant flow that we're able to engage in, whether something challenging is happening or something good is happening. That's resilient. It's resilient. I'm resilient. Yeah, this is difficult now. But as a Buddhist, I can even recognize, yeah, this is difficult now, but this is now an opportunity to grow. And it will come and go. I'm okay. I'm okay. This state of happiness is this sort of much greater flow of inner peace, of contentment, of well-being, that has, and I like the word he used, a resiliency. Yeah, day's a little tough today, but it'll go, it'll change. What's going to matter is, how do I engage in life? How do I respond to what's happening? And so when we want to cultivate this inner peace and well-being and stuff, it really comes from, as we talked about, is cultivating merit. And this merit and virtue in our life, Aristotle will tell you the same thing. This is where we cultivate this inner peace, well-being, this state of wellness. And we're going to be able to cultivate that much more if we start paying attention to reality than if I get caught up in all my worries and fears and the stories that my mind tells us. So when we look at the stories our mind tells us, recent Harvard study I want to throw out there, because it's another way of putting this in Sometimes it's good to hear things in different ways. Harvard research study, which, and there are many studies that have noticed that our well-being, inner peace, our happiness, has a direct correlation, much stronger than anything else, to simply whether or not I'm able to pay attention to what I'm doing. It's really quite fascinating. More so than whether I'm doing something fun or not fun, whether I'm thinking happy thoughts or worrying or whatever. You're going to have a stronger sense of well-being, which is more dependent on whether your thoughts are actually on what you're doing, even if what you're doing is raking the yard, even if what you're doing is washing the dishes. If you're able to have your mind in that activity of what you're doing, that's going to be a much stronger determinant factor of your overall happiness and well-being than what you're doing. Whether you're doing something fun, thinking something, it's being able to be engaged in what you're doing. So what they found basically is this: mind wandering, my mind being distracted, the more that it takes place in my life, the less happy I'll be. And then they found that our mind tends to wander about half the time. So about, on average, 47%. So nearly half the amount of time. In general, people's mind are mind wandering. They're distracted. It's not on what I'm doing. And so this is important because what it tells us is really a reminder in another way of what is the source of my unhappiness, mostly. It's my mind. And on one level, it's just simply my mind wandering. What's happening when my mind's wandering? It's going to worries, concerns, what ifs, if onlys, could have beens, I hope happens, and not on what I'm doing. And if we start to notice this, and just this sort of simple mindfulness activities of, like, whether you're raking a yard, Thich Nhat Hanh has great teachings, washing the dishes and being present, know that you're washing the dishes. Well, when you're doing that, and you're actually paying attention to doing that, you know what your mind's not doing? It's not doing the if-onlys, what-ifs, could-have-beens, I hope so's. It's not caught up in all that. I'm actually just washing the dishes. And you'll notice, anyone who's done any sort of basic mindfulness practices, when you feel your feet or you bring your awareness to something and you can rest there for a moment, you're going to find peaceful, blissful feelings because your mind's not caught up in all the elaborations and conceptual thought that take us away from this. So what this tells us is that our natural state, before our mind starts ramping things up, our natural state is pretty blissful. You don't need to go anywhere. You don't need to do anything. As a matter of fact, you need to not do things. We need to not get caught up in the stories. We need to not let that mind start reaching out and grabbing at things. It's the elaborative process that our mind's doing, and I'll break that down in a minute, that creates the trouble. Right now in this moment, if you were to sit and relax, and if you're warm enough, I know some people I notice are getting a little cold in here, but if you're warm enough and you're content, where's the problem? There's no problem, right? As a matter of fact, almost every moment of your life, if you were to just check in that moment, there's no problem. We often think, man, I really need to work on myself. I need to fix this in me. I got issues, man. I got issues. Well, where's those issues in this moment? In this moment, what's there to fix? But I can tell myself a pretty big story. Well, I got issues, man. I need to uncover. I need to do this. I need to do that. I need to, work on myself. What self is it that we need to work on? And that's where Buddhism starts bringing you to reality, which says the self that you're hanging on to doesn't really exist. There is no concrete John here that was the same John that was here yesterday. That John has changed and had a fluid of moments and new information and changes. The body's changed. My awarenesses have changed. My knowledge has changed. The person I am today is not the person who was here a year ago, not the person who was here 10 years ago, wasn't here yesterday. That concept of John, of a stable self, doesn't exist. But I really cling to it, right? I'm this kind of guy, and I'm good at this, and I'm not good at that. And this misperception of me being this solid guy who has issues, I carry with me every day. And then, I like that and I don't like that, and I'm good at this, I'm not good at that. And I carry this, and there's no basis in reality for that. There is this body here and a continuum of consciousness that was, linked to what was yesterday and is going into tomorrow. But it's all fluid. It's all changing all the time. And if we remember that, we get to remember that we get a change. That I could have been very poor at language, and I can become good at language. I could be a pessimistic, angry person, and I can become a loving, kind person. Again, science has shown this. In the Matthew Ricard talk, he talked about just in very short periods of time. It doesn't have to be huge amounts of time. Over just a period of weeks of doing compassion meditation, your mind, both structurally and functionally, changes. Your brain, not just the mind, the brain itself will structurally change. You create new neural pathways, and you can change things. And it's just like if you sit down at a piano, you probably won't be a concert pianist right away. But you practice every day, you'll learn how to play songs, and you'll learn how to play. Likewise, we can train our mind, we can change ourselves, but it takes some continuity of practice. So meditating is, first off, the path to start noticing that my mind's wandering. It starts noticing, if I have a stable meditation practice, I can start noticing that I'm getting caught up in stories and stuff. And the stories aren't true. Just break down the stories. Any of them. They're just fascinating. No basis in truth, but man, we tell them all day long. I am like this because that happened to me, and that's what made me like this. And, we just have fascinating stories, and I'll be so happy when I get that degree, my life is going to be great. And boy, if I just met the love of my life, the best person ever, the new next person ever, because that was so 2 wives ago. But, this one's the real deal. And, right, that's the real one right there. And we forget that I was happy before I met this person. And we forget that, I was a whole being then too. And this new feeling, thought, or emotion just carries us away onto new things. And then I so identify with it. It's just a story. It's an elaborative process. So, in truth, more accurately, what happens is we have sensations that feel good and sensations that don't feel so good. I see things in a certain way, but how I see the world is subjective and relational, right? It's subjective. If I'm feeling good today, yeah, you're pretty cool. I'm not feeling so good today. I'm a little tired of your week. Man, you're a jerk. Can you believe, man? Stacy's been such a jerk today. Yesterday, she was great. I don't know what happened. Is she one way or another, or is my attitude about her one way or another? What if I did a meditation this morning, reflecting and recalling the kindness of all the people in my life and how much they benefit me? Suddenly, everybody's kind of nice. How I experience the world is through my lens of karmic imprints, of how I feel today. It's subjective, it's relational. And it doesn't mean that there aren't things that hurt and things that don't hurt and things that are more beneficial and things that are not. But it means that they're subjective and relational. And I need to remember that. And that whatever's happening, the most important thing that matters is how do I respond? And am I accumulating merit and wisdom? And am I starting to see things more accurately? Because whatever's happening, is an opportunity for me to be better. In this lifetime that will never come again, every moment is a moment to be a better human being and to cultivate my enlightenment, to gain wisdom and to gain knowledge, whether it's fun or whether it's not fun. And all the stories I tell around it are really interesting stories. And there's a place for stories. I like telling a good story. They can be teachable moments. But at the core is, if I keep buying into the 8 worldly concerns, if I keep buying into trying to just make my moments in this life as pleasurable as possible and try to avoid unpleasurable ones, based on misperception that the pleasure and unpleasurable comes from out there, this life will come and go, and I will be stuck into a cycle. And I'll never find satisfaction, happiness, inner peace, well-being. And yet, it's always there. The only thing cluttering it is the stories in my mind that really grab on to something that's not true. It's one thing if it was true. Then yeah, I get that. And so renunciation becomes this strong determination to start to recognize the really weakness. It's actually a distaste for getting caught up in those dramas that my mind plays. So, let me see if I get to. I do get to. So there's this incredible text, this really concise text of the path to enlightenment, and how, if these paths interplay in a way that can really lead us to be free of suffering, to be free of all these fabrications. And it's renunciation, bodhicitta, and wisdom. And I have not looked at the translation of this text yet, so it'll be interesting to see how well we do. In texts, especially in Tibetan texts, especially when it's the essence of a teaching. So there's 3 volumes of this Lam Rims, right? There's a 3-volume one that we kind of went through and we spent a lot of time, I think over 30 sessions on. And I just did the the surface of them. On that, there's another 5-volume commentary on that. And so here's 14 verses. So what happens is in these sort of Tibetan Buddhist teachings especially, they'll concise, and in one sentence can be, a months of teaching. And my teacher sometimes, like we'd go through one verse, and we'd do that for a few weeks. And it can do, so you can really unpack. So we'll see, as I have not looked at this yet, what we come up with. And if I know what I'm talking about, too. As you translate from Tibetan into English, different people will use different words. And, it's not a direct thing. So you can read the same thing in many different ways. So as with all these incredible teachings, there's always first a prostration and an acknowledgement. So this is, by the way, the 3 principal aspects of the path. And this is a letter that Lama Tsongkhapa directed at one of his disciples. And really capturing, the essence of the Lam Rim, what we call the 3 principal aspects of the path. Lama Tsongkhapa, the head of the Gelug lineage, and we went through a commentary on him earlier when we did the Lam Rim. So first, I prostrate to my ennobling, impeccable lamas. And then verse 1, I shall try to explain to the best of my ability the essential meaning of the scriptural pronouncements of the triumphant ones. The path praised by the triumphant's holy offspring, the fording passage for the fortunate desiring liberation. Now you guys get that, right, real quick? So the first one, the essential meaning of all the scriptural pronouncements of the triumphant ones refers to renunciation. It's saying to be triumphant, we really need to cultivate and recognize the dukkha, the unsatisfactory nature of a conditioned existence. So you can see how it starts to unpack. The second one being the path praised by the triumphant's holy offspring, bodhicitta, the great compassion. This is the fuel from which we can really cultivate our enlightened qualities. And the fording passage of the fortunate, desiring liberation, that's wisdom. So all of this, ultimately, there's only one way to become free of suffering, and that's to see things clearly, wisdom. This is the unlocking, the correct understanding of the nature of reality. Just see things as accurate. And so I just want to say something here. So on wisdom, we can really unpack this in a very simple way, I think. There's levels to it, obviously. And we have spent, I think, over 3 sessions on wisdom, on the nature of reality. So I know all of you have it nailed. But on a very simple thing, it's we can see how quickly our mind plays games on us. Just quickly, on anything, on any situation. If I want to find inner peace or be a good human being, I want to be honest and kind. What do you need to do to be honest and kind? You need to tell the truth and treat people kindly, right? Pretty simple. And yet, I can go out and I can be angry and unkind, right, and dishonest. And I can rationalize lying all the time, right? Well, I probably shouldn't have told them the truth. It's a small lie. It's for their benefit, in the long run. Don't tell them the truth. How's that going to work, right? How's that going to work? Any situation that we're in, we can start to see that if I really want to be meaningful in my life, I do meaningful things. And yet I'll go out and I know that this is unhealthy and this is healthy. I know it. What do? I'll pick this sometimes, right? I mean, I know donuts are actually healthy. But some people are confused on that, right? We got a new donut shop in town. So, but whether it's a healthy activity or unhealthy activity, we could sit there and I'm using donuts or physical health, but just mental and emotional health or habits or things that we do that we know I can use my time more wisely if I do this, and I'll feel better for it if I study or I read this or I do this thing or I go help so-and-so, or I can lay at home and do this. And I can easily pick this. And so wisdom starts to say, well, really, I'm unhappy and unsatisfied because of the choices I make. It's not because of the circumstances. The circumstances overall are pretty good, and we can read and write, we have cars, we have electricity, we've got everything. My unhappiness, satisfaction, distress is from wanting things to be different than they are, which automatically you're insane, by the way. Things are the way they are. You can, all the day, they are the way they are. And the quicker we can see things the way they are and respond, then now we can do things. That's just wisdom. That is just straight up wisdom. Things are the way they are, right? They're saying, it is what it is. Okay. So things are the way they are. Me wanting it to be different does not help anybody, anyway. It resists me from seeing and accepting things as they are. Now, if I accept that things are arising as they are, well, and I don't like it, I can do something about it, right? But I can't do anything about it while I'm still ruminating on how it shouldn't be that way. Right? If only. anytime you use if only with the past, you are totally delusional. It has no basis in reality. Because we don't know what would have happened. It never happened. So life happens, and wisdom says, this is happening. And wisdom would always point us to what is the best way to respond to what's happening, right? Somebody cheats me out of $100. Yeah, I could all day long talk about, hey, somebody stole $100, ripped me off. I'm angry about it. I'm going to tell you about it, get you angry. And what am I doing? I'm fueling anger, right? I'm fueling resentment, and somehow I think that's going to make me feel good. How's that work? Not only am I angry, I'm getting you angry. And anger creates the seeds of anger. How do you create love and kindness that I want? I don't do it by getting angry. Somebody rips me out for $100. You know what I do is I don't loan them $100 again. All right? And I work on responding to how to get another $100. But if I spend all my time angry at how someone took $100, it's not very helpful. It's certainly not wise, and it's not going to help me improve my situation. I can learn from that $100 and go, I'm not going to, do business with that person again. Fine. But the longer I hang on to that resentment, somehow, that's the old quote that says, resentments are like hanging on to a hot burning coal expecting the other person to hurt. Right? It doesn't work. So if somebody does harm to me, I feel the pain. Well, with wisdom, I would want to, how do I respond to make the rest of my life better? If I respond out of anger and resentment, how to make their life worse? How wise is that? I could have boundaries and hold them accountable in ways that would improve both of the lives. That's different. That's compassion. So when we start to recognize that, just wisdom in itself of starting to think, what are the mental states I would like to cultivate, and what are the ones that create harm? And when I notice that things happen and I'm angry and resentment, well, what am I really angry about? Has anybody lost money before? Are you okay today? Right? Has anybody made a lot of money before? Yeah. And then have you lost money? Yeah. Have you had a good job and then lost it? Yeah, we have. All of these things in life come and go. And they come and go. And we just get so wrapped up in it. And, that's again back to just the research and stuff, again, out of Harvard from another researcher. We exaggerate how good something is and how terrible something is. They come and go. But our level of happiness today, again, comes back to how we're living our life. So wisdom, on one level, before we get to the nature of how things appear to us, on a very basic level, we can start to constantly ask ourselves a very simple question. What's the healthiest way to respond? What's going to give me a result that will actually be beneficial? And it's funny, we can ask ourselves that and still do the opposite. I still do. And so what we want to know is that we can know things and not know things simultaneously. I can know, I better not tell you what I'm thinking right now and do it anyway. Right? And that just demonstrates that our mind is this very entrenched force we call karma and klesha. Mental afflictions encoded with our karma, our habits, our tendencies. It's very strong. And it's used to running the show. And our job is to let go of that. Our job is to poke holes at it and say, you're not true. You're not true. And the only way to start doing that is shedding the light of wisdom on it. And as you do, you'll notice those stories don't hold up. It wasn't the worst day ever. It wasn't the best day ever. It wasn't the longest day ever. Unless it was the longest day ever. I think there are technically, right, longer and shorter days in history. I don't know. But generally when we say, man, that was the longest day of my life. Really? There's all these things we say that really just don't hold up. And with wisdom, we want to check ourselves, you know. That person's a terrible person. Is that true? Or did that person do a terrible thing? That's probably more accurate. I've done terrible things. I've done good things. Other people have done terrible things and done good things, right? This is just how things are. But our stories will take a look, and that person's a terrible person. That person's a good person. Hey, so-and-so, he's a great guy. You know, except when he's being a jerk. Hey, that guy's a jerk. Well, except when they're helping others, and then they're a great guy. But we really hardwire how we see people, and we see people in a way that just makes them real. In our community yesterday, I pointed out how we think about people, right? We all know somebody. You know, I use the example of a famous person. So somebody famous, somebody who is well known, could be a politician, someone a movie star. Robert Redford, right? Robert Redford. I'll use him. I like Robert Redford. Love Robert Redford. I don't know Robert Redford. I've never met Robert Redford. I've read some things about him. And I've heard good things about him, clearly. I've never met him, and I've liked his movies. He's a great actor. But I'm going to tell you everything I know, and I have a strong feeling about him, because I look a lot like him. And, okay, I'm much more like Woody Allen. No, not Woody Allen. Woody Harrelson. You know? Yeah. Shooting for Robert Redford, getting Woody Harrelson. But nonetheless, I have this impression of him, right? And I really put him on an altar. I've never met him. I have no idea. I've never met him, and the bits of information I know about him have come from little writings about him that I've read somewhere from someone who may have never met him also, right? And it's instantly, I think I know who Robert Redford is. I can tell you all about him. He's a great guy. He started Sundance. He helps all these people, and he does this. I have no idea. I've never met him. And out of his whole life of many years of good deeds and frustrated deeds and all the deeds he's done, all I have is a few glimpses of information based on somebody else's hearsay. But I think I know him. We meet somebody in a minute and we can go, man, can you believe they're a jerk? And I actually think they're a jerk. Or I met this person for a minute and they do something really nice and they help me out with a flat tire and I think they're the greatest guy ever. And I just believe all these to be true because I know it. I experienced it. Right? He's a nice guy. Help me out. Okay, he beats his wife. He's abusive. He does all these other things, right? But he helped me with my tire, you know? Or the person who's doing harmful things who used to be a victim of harmful things. You know, life's messy and people are human and we have an ebb and flow of things. But none of that factors in to the other human beings we encounter. We start calling him, yeah, that's a great guy. And it's funny because we stick up for our friends, right? Wow, if you knew Jimmy, man, come on. Jimmy, yeah, sure, he treated you like, but you know, you got to know him, right? And likewise, if you get to know almost anybody, you'll start to like them. If you really know their struggles and what they've had to go through and they start sharing some stuff, you start to like them, you'll understand. So I'm sharing this in the context of how our mind just paints a picture that isn't true. We really, you know, that person who hurt us 5 years ago, every time I think of them, man, they're such a horrible person. And I get angry. It happened 5 years ago, and I'm still angry. I call up their mind, and I can't even fathom that they've maybe changed or actually done nice things and helped other people. And I think about all the people I harmed 5 years ago or 10 years ago. Or if we go back 30 years. But I've changed, and other people changed. And so we can know this and not know this simultaneously. Because right now we kind of get it, and tomorrow you're going to see some jerks and some annoying people and some people you really like. And you're going to think that's who they are. You're going to hear about a politician and you're going to think, I know that person, I've never met them. You're going to hear about someone, you're going to think that's who they are. And we just do it, it's in habit. So how do we unravel that? How do we start knowing what we actually know instead of not knowing what we know? And that's by starting to pay attention. And it takes an effort. It takes an effort to not just fall into habits and labeling and projections and our comfort zone. And that's where renunciation becomes the root. The root becomes to notice that all of this is just creating suffering. And I don't want to play that game anymore. I just don't. I want to feel good. And you know, just as that Harvard study says, washing the dishes or raking the yard, if I'm paying attention, that will create more happiness than whether or not I get to go skiing today. Which is quite fascinating. I mean, not going to skiing, if you start paying attention to skiing and being in there, that'll be really good too. So could raking the yard. Folding my clothes allows me to have clean clothes I feel good about. And yet I'll resist folding the clothes. Or be resentful that I got to fold the damn clothes or do the laundry, right? When in fact, I'm really happy to have those clothes and I like them when they're clean. Our mind is just a funny, fascinating place. That if we just step back for a moment and go, you know, I really like having clean, folded clothes. I just don't like folding them. We'll also start to notice I really want inner peace and well-being, but I'm much more attracted to the cause of my suffering. Right? I'd much rather do the little habits and things that really create suffering in my life than the things that create inner peace. It's fascinating. We do it all the time. So, let me see if I can get to a second verse here. It says, listen with a clear mind, O fortunate one, whose mind would rely on the path pleasing the triumphant one. Oh, pleasing to the triumphant. Through being unattached to the pleasures of compulsive existence and eager to make meaningful your life of respites and enriching factors. So key point here, through being unattached to the pleasures of compulsive existence and eager to make meaningful your life of respites and enriching factors. So, again, we're in renunciation, which is, you know what, I don't want to get attached to my impulses, desires, and stuff that create suffering. I just don't. I don't want to play there anymore. And so on one hand, this has got his method of looking down on something and looking up towards something. I want to look down on the causes of dissatisfaction, suffering, anger, resentment, jealousy. I want to stop getting caught up in having you look at me a certain way because I want you to like me, right? I want to stop getting caught up that if only I had this, I'd be happy. These 8 worldly concerns. I want to stop worrying about your appreciation or whether you think I'm a valuable person, and just start being a good person, right? And so I want to let go of the attachments to my impulsive and desires for temporary moments of pleasure that are actually the source of all my suffering. And that's really it. If you really notice, the core root of it all is I'm really attached to little moments of pleasure, and I will pick them over a long-term happiness all day long. All day long, I will want to just feel good now. And so I'm not doing the things that will make me feel good long-term. That's why I'm eating the donut, right? That's why I'm not doing the other paper. That's why I don't fold my clothes. That's why I don't, It's the same thing we teach our kids, delayed gratification. I don't want to face the truth of telling you something you don't want to hear if you're my boss. I lie. You know, it's not going to create a long-term joy, but it gets me out of it for a moment. And so all day long, I'll sell out my virtuous activity for 8 worldly concerns. I'm attracted to my very short-term sense of wanting to feel good right now. Right now. This is the root. This is the root. When they talk about a grasping attachment, it's an attachment that wants a pleasure now, an attachment to a physical, which I confuse for this more long-term lasting happiness that comes from actually doing things I feel good about. So we look down, we let go. So just letting go of my attachment to these unhealthy, think of it as just unhealthy habits, unhealthy tendencies, you know. Let go of those. And eager to make meaningful my life. So we're looking up to the path of enlightenment. We're looking up to liberation. So I'm letting go of the things that keep me trapped, unhappy, and dissatisfied. And I'm looking for that which will release me. So they use the words to make meaningful my life of respites and enriching factors. So we'd say opportunity and leisure, the 18 factors of a rare and precious human rebirth. Respite, you know, it's a funny word, respite. It almost sounds bad, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. But respite, you have a little respite from your suffering, right? It's actually a short respite. So respite in this sense and enriching factors, we use the words opportunity and leisure. We have right now the opportunity for enlightenment. You have the opportunity to no longer suffer. You have all of that. And you have the leisure. You actually have time. You have time right now to actually cultivate a path to enlightenment. You actually had time to come here tonight. You have a choice to think about what book to read. If you were to actually read a book. I'm just saying that because somebody's Facebook quote is pretty funny. They posted a thing. It says, "I finally finished a book." Now there's 6 others unread. You know how some people, we start to read a book, we never finish. So, but we have time to read a book. We have time to study. We have time. We actually have a choice about what do I want to do today. Most human beings don't. Most human beings are just trying to survive today, and they're trying to get enough to eat, and they're trying to stay okay. We, in our situation, have the 18 factors. We have the Dharma. We have right now a path and teachings that have withstood time in a lineage and a proven track record of enlightenment for beings. We have great masters who can teach from personal experience. And we have the whole condition to become enlightened in this lifetime. Right now, you have that. And instead we're hanging out on Facebook, right? Instead we're going out to the movies. Instead we're going out. I'm caught up in trying to find the next pleasurable thing. And I'm not thinking about the most meaningful thing. I'm not thinking, wow, I have all the opportunity right now to cultivate the enlightened qualities. And even if I don't achieve it in this lifetime, it prepares for the next one. And it's an amazing thing when you make that shift, because all of this stuff does not impact. Everything becomes an opportunity for practice. Everything that happens becomes, wow, I get to cultivate more merit and wisdom right now. Slap me in the face, man, that hurts, right? That becomes an opportunity to practice compassion, to respond with wisdom. Everything that happens is, how do I become enlightened? How do I let go of a conditioned existence? And so I want to make this life meaningful. That's where this becomes the teaching on what we call the four thoughts that turn your mind to Dharma, which we've gone over, I'm sure, many times. So if we are to make our life meaningful, we need to just remember again something about reality. And I'll just run through them real quick, and we're about at our time. And so we've gone through, this is the foundational aspects of what's really going to turn your mind to Dharma, turn your mind to the truth. What's going to make me really want to show up today and actually do the most meaningful of things. And that's just to remember reality. The reality are these four thoughts, right? So first thought is that you do have a rare and precious human rebirth with opportunity and leisure. You have it. Very few of the 7 billion human beings have it. You have it. You have perfect teachings available. You have a mind that works. You can walk and talk. You can read and write. You can do practice. You have all of this incredible opportunity. And beyond that, there's a lot of people that have that, but they don't have what you have. They don't have an awareness that there's something not working here. They don't have an awareness that this is just not enough. And you do. Otherwise you wouldn't be here. You're aware that this stuff is a bit nonsensical. You're aware of dukkha. You're aware of dissatisfaction. And you have it. So you have these ripe conditions. And then the second thought here is you won't have them forever, right? You're going to die. It's always, I love when I do the mindful stuff. Hey, you have this great, wonderful opportunity. You're going to die. So we would say in Buddhist teachings that you have worked incredible eons of lifetimes to be here now. You wouldn't be here now with these 18 conditions unless you had created all the karma and conditions and worked many lifetimes again. You have it right now. There's a lot of people who are not sitting here on a Wednesday night. You can tell. There's a lot of people not sitting here. We're in a small valley. There's a lot of people that are not thinking about this at all. If you expand that to the U.S., if you expand it to the world, you are. You are part of this rare and precious human rebirth. You've worked many lifetimes. You have an inkling of the truth and the nature of things. And you have all the conditions available to make use of it. You won't have it forever. This body will come and go. Death is certain, time of death uncertain. We don't know if we'll be here tomorrow. So you've done all these eons of lifetimes of work to be here now, to have all this opportunity. You won't have it for long. And we don't know if we got tomorrow. We don't know if we got 20 years, 50 years. We don't know. And then death's a certain time of death, a certain third one is karma, which is at the time of death, this body will come and go. Truth, all of your friends will come and go. Everyone you know will come and go. Life's impermanent, things change, and this body will end. And when this body ends, what happens? What goes on? And what goes on is how we lived our life. That's what goes on. My consciousness goes from life to life. The body dies. The consciousness now is going to take a new life. See things differently. And it's going to see things based on how I lived this life. Am I paying attention to that? Or am I paying attention to whether or not I get to go grab a temporary pleasure when this body dies? So when we really take time and remember that what's meaningful is how I live my life, that's the essence, that's the treasure of this life I've worked lifetimes for. Then we reflect upon the fourth thought, which is this conditioned existence that we have, this human condition that we have. It's limited. It can't provide any real happiness. It's unsatisfactory. And it's just ripe with, if you are born as a human, guaranteed, a little later in here we'll talk about these sort of four rivers. You will age, you will get sick, you will die, you'll get born. Everything about life here is messy. Every friend you will have will come and go. We need to remember that. So these four thoughts help us remember the truth and tells us this day will never come again. What matters is how you live it. And what's really going to matter at the time of death is how you lived your life. Well, that's the foundation for renunciation, is this remembering that you have done eons of work for this life. It's ripe now. How do I want to live it? And is it worth getting angry and frustrated over something? Is that really the best use of my time? Is it getting worried or fearful going to be helpful? Or is putting that staff of renunciation into this moment and saying, I am doing my best to stop suffering. And I'm going to be determined to stop getting caught up in my stories. And know that it's a path. It's going to take time. But right now, I'm going to do the best I can and make today meaningful. Because today will never come again. And the moment to improve is always now. The moment to improve is now. You remember that. No matter what's happening, the way to improve is now. The time to improve my life is always now. It's not a distant future thing. It's now. And right now I can choose to listen to my mind or choose to be engaged accurately in my life. So we got to 2 verses, sort of. I actually barely touched on that. But so where I want to invite people this week is to really start paying attention to the stories our mind tells us. And start noticing, do my pleasures last? Do my frustrations last? Do my fears last? Do my insecurities? Or do they come and go? And do I have, even in my anger, notice some comfort? Or do I notice that in my fear, there can still be some joy, or that I can be a little unhappy but also have some contentment? You may notice these are very fluctual things, that they come and go, and none of them define you. They're experiences you're having. They come and they go, and you're still here, and you're okay, and you're well, and everything in your nature is already well. And what's cluttering is just my mind doing a bunch of stuff. Try to remember that this week. Try to notice that. And try to poke holes in the stories your mind tells you. See if they're true. Or if they hold up. Is that person really a jerk? Or is that person really a great guy? Or are they somewhere in between? All right. Well, we'll do our little dedication. And did I say little dedication? This is our big dedication for the benefit of all beings. Let us dedicate the virtue and wisdom that we have accumulated here today and throughout our lives, both individually and collectively. We dedicate this for the benefit of all beings. May all beings be free of suffering and find lasting happiness. And may we be able to use the virtue and wisdom accumulated here today and throughout our lives to purify our minds, purifying them of the delusion, the karma, the kleshas, and to cultivate our mind of wisdom so that we can become enlightened, be free of suffering, and be truly able to help all beings be free of suffering. All right. Always a joy, a pleasure, and an honor to be with you and to be with you online. Thank you all so much. May you be well, be happy, and as always, try to stay out of trouble.